haven't, because we're trying to
Yes,
set
you
these
missed
things
my
up.
poem.
Oh,
I want my
Right,
money
folks.
back then.
I
Oh,
knew there was something I was going to mention.
Oh, I haven't paid. I should have kept my mouth shut, shouldn't I?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, that makes up for the 20 minutes late.
oh, were you late as well, Andy?
No, I've been sitting here trying to get in for 20 minutes.
Yeah, me too.
Right. We've been here, but the problem is it's not always showing on the screen. So I've been saying, well, where's Andy for the past 15 minutes? So we've been talking away, waiting for you, and you were there all along.
It says waiting for host to let you into the meeting is the window I get up.
Yeah.
Yes, we all had that. But he let me in quite early. I was quite surprised.
I disconnected twice, thinking it was because I had the same problem last week. It took 10 minutes to get through. So
yeah,
I was just about to text you.
I've made you co-host to right. Okay. Well, we will make up for it tonight. So right. Any news from anybody tonight? Andy, anything you'd like to tell us?
No.
No.
No. I did. Oh yeah. Wait a minute. I did have a chat to that lady who's in charge of Hincaster's history, and they've apparently got boxes of artifacts that they've got. People have been around metal detecting and logging it all and reporting it properly, and then the lady who's been collecting the artifacts has been identifying them and putting them in little presentation boxes, which they've got. So she said, oh, you must come round and have a look. So
Andy, you know what happens when women invite you into their houses, don't you?
Yeah.
Is it Roman stuff?
Well, yeah, I guess so. She's quite knowledgeable about what's going on. I just think, you've got a place called Hincaster, clearly Roman, and but there's virtually no sign. She doesn't think there's any sign of any remains there. And I said, well, we've got access to surveying equipment. She goes, oh, right. And I said, yeah, and I know the family very well. So I'm hoping I can get in there. I'm just thinking, you can't have a place like that without having a villa or at least a farmstead, so.
There must have been something.
There has to have been something there, yeah.
Well, you could be the one that discovers it all, Andy, in that case.
That's what I'm planning, and if not, I'll make sure it is there. Oh,
Make
no. Build a new Roman centre.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for that, Andy. That's really interesting. So, what museum is this again? You were talking about what?
It's noticed they're the farmers that own the land, and they've had various people in, and she's particularly interested in history, and is part of a local history group. But I came across her just as she was given a credit in a book I was reading, and I thought, I know her. I didn't know you were into that, because I never knew she was into that at all. Because she's like my friend's sister-in-law. So I bumped into her on Saturday and had a nice chat to her about it. She said, oh yeah, come round, I'll show you it all and all the rest of it. And I said, oh well, I've got access here. I said, we've got an archaeology group, we've got this and we've got that and all the rest of it. I said, we've also got access to surveying equipment if it's worth it. She said, oh, because she said there's no sign of anything. I thought, well, if you've got all these artifacts, there's got to be something there. So
yeah, I agree.
So.
I completely agree, Andy. Okay, Margaret, do you know what? Right, I actually thought you were already in the group.
No.
I kept saying for 10 minutes, well, where is Andy?
Oh well,
because this is why we were delayed. Oh,
never
mind.
Right,
okay.
I've discovered a new word. Do you want to hear my new word? What I've discovered?
No bad language.
It's epipaleolithic.
What?
Epipaleolithic.
Ooh.
And that do you know what that means?
Go on.
It's a period that represents a time when everyone in the world was a hunter-gatherer.
Oh, God.
Oh, right.
Oh, that's just really controversial.
Yeah. It sounds like everyone's having a fit, doesn't it? An old fit.
From around 25,000 to 11,000 600 calendar years ago.
Rubbish. Oh,
And,
sorry.
and,
No,
Was that on a Thursday?
yeah. Thursday afternoon at 3:00. And I've also discovered who they think built Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
What Dave?
Göbekli Tepe.
That's the one.
Yeah, they think it might be the Natufian culture.
Ooh.
Natufian. Yeah. Is it Natufian?
Natufian, yeah.
Yeah, who were in the Levant.
Oh my God, you're definitely going for it this week.
Levant, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria area.
You know, I am impressed.
That's good, isn't it?
Mind you, I don't agree with this thing about
and a bit of Turkey.
Epi-Paleolithic.
No, I don't agree with the fact that everybody. The thing is that we've sort of. The word hunter-gatherer is a bit loose when we think about Japan now, and we start to think about all the evidence that we've seen from the Mesolithic period, and yeah, a bit loose, really.
Yeah.
In fact, what is a hunter-gatherer when a hunter-gatherer can have a settlement? You know, this is the thing, isn't it? So, well, we're getting this in Japan, and yeah.
Well, they would move according to seasons, wouldn't they?
Oh, Pete, we've been doing this for ages. But one of the things that we've been looking at in particular is that in Japan, that they've got set places that people lived. They had all the technology and everything 12, 13, 14, 15,000 years ago, and basically they didn't need farming. They could just simply hunt gather. So, but they had places to live in permanently. So, what is the definition of a hunter-gatherer? That's the problem, really.
Well, Göbekli Tepe, was that about 12,000 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. So the thing is, and also we're talking about Çatalhöyük, roughly around that time as well.
Yeah.
And that's not far away from Göbekli Tepe. Those two locations you just mentioned are both in southeastern Turkey. So.
Yeah, well, these people actually built permanent homes.
Yeah, exactly. But do you class them as hunter-gatherer? And
no.
in my definition, no. But
no.
But in other people's definitions, this is a problem. For me, I don't like the word hunter-gatherer because it just doesn't seem to mean what it used to, basically.
No.
So
they're kind of loosely nomadic, aren't they? But
loosely nomadic, exactly.
Well, they would move according to the food of the time, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Wherever they knew that food was going to be, whether it be berries or animals, of a particular animal in a particular area or whatever at a particular time. Maybe perhaps that animal had young, and the young were much easier to catch, maybe
they had a summer house as well. Winter house and a summer house.
What was available in the area? They would move to the area where food was available. So they would hunter and gather.
I think what we did come up with eventually with the Mesolithic period was that across Britain there were so many different ways that people lived. Some people were sedentary. They had a limited amount of agriculture. Other people moved around. Other people were seasonal. Other people did this. Other people did that. So the definition is really loose.
So what they were doing is they were sofa surfing, weren't they? They were going to different people's houses all the time.
Yeah, but the problem is there weren't many IKEA outlets there then, Andy. So
hey, it's all disposable, isn't it? So how would you know?
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, IKEA wasn't that big back then, so having those sofas and all that stuff, it's just right. I think we got off on one. Right. Thank you for that, Margaret.
Okay.
Right, Peter. Anything you want to say?
No, I'm fine, thanks. I said enough.
We will discuss money in a moment. Right. What about you, Drina?
No, nothing.
Drina, I got to be honest with you, right? you know, your image is really clear today, and we're only getting the top of your head. I just thought I'd mention that. Me and Anne are definitely into the full appeal of your posture. Right, okay. Anne, anything you want to say?
No, nothing. I'm ignorant this week.
Right, okay. Oh, we've got David. Anything you want to say, David?
No, sorry, Carl.
Okay. Well, I wanted to say thanks for that, Dave. I wanted to say quite importantly, we've with Archaeology Company now that we're you know, we've got a lot less people than we had, and I just want to make sure that everybody's sort of singing from the same hymn sheet. So I know that Margaret and David in particularly have had a letter through the post saying that their membership is up for renewal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So this is where it gets confusing. So that's your £32 for the year, and now the £50 for the next 2 months has come up as well. So just be clear that there's those two amounts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Good. So just sort of be aware of that. If you want to send it in separately, that's fine. So now I've made that clear, right? And any other questions on any of that side of things with the money? No.
Well, I think I'm also due. I'm due I know I had the renewal of the.
Right. So.
And am I also due for the £50 for the 2 months?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You don't get away with it because you're called Anne.
No, I didn't think so. I did try and pay just before they, but my computer wasn't going
right. Is there something going wrong with the computers tonight? Everyone's having a nightmare with them.
I'm just hopeless using computers, so they often don't work.
It's Putin.
Well, I dropped the camera. I've been down on my knees trying to get the camera.
Dear.
Hey, steady.
Right. Okay. Look. Anyone got any problems accessing getting on next week? Just phone. Andy, phone me or something. Right. Just so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you usually do, and I just thought, oh right, Andy hadn't even phoned.
Well, I knew you would. The other week you were delayed because you had been at that audition. I thought, oh, maybe is it an audition again or whatever, and it's just a bit delayed. So I was just about to. So. Oh,
don't worry, we're fine. We're fine. Anyway, thanks for everybody's patience. Now, one of the problems with the Neolithic period is how to start and where to start, and how do we get into this? And Margaret, in a way, started us off on a bit of a weird ball game with the word with that very word hunter gatherer.
Oh.
And we have in fact, for the past 7-8 months of doing the Mesolithic period, been sort of really rewriting what that word hunter gatherer means. So and so coming into the Neolithic period now, I do have the problem. The problem is if we go with this opening statement, right, about the Neolithic period, and this is in this book, Ancient Britain, which some of you have got, it says the first European farmers is settled in Greece by 8,500 years ago. 2,000 years later, famine had spread from there by way of the lands of the upper Danube through Western Europe to Britain. Now, we've got a problem with that, don't we? Because that means that if you take 2,000 years off 8,500 years ago, that takes us to 6,500 years ago, that agriculture reached Britain. But in fact, we've already got agriculture in Britain 2,000 years earlier than that. So then we have a problem. So the problem is the overall definition of lots of writers about the Neolithic period they basically say that the Neolithic period starts with what's called the agricultural revolution. So our dates are slightly earlier than lots of this textbook stuff, because things have moved on a great deal since this day that ancient Dyer actually wrote ancient Britain. And in fact, this is actually being reprinted over and over again. I think there's a 2017 version of it. So to try and get around these various different problems, and we did a little bit of an overview last week. I thought that running with a suggestion that was made a couple of weeks ago may confuse matters. And the suggestion was that we looked in the next few weeks at the Mesolithic in another part of the world when we're trying to get into the Neolithic period. So I probably need to discuss that in a break if you still want me to look at that and maybe do a little bit of a comparison somewhere else. But we are definitely looking at how the Neolithic changes things and what the ball game is with the Neolithic period. Now, I then thought that maybe the best thing to do would be to look at Great Langdale just briefly, and then come back to Great Langdale. So we're gonna base the Langdale stuff on what James Dyer is actually telling us, right? And what we do see is this little map. And if you look here, right, that middle map there shows you the distribution of where all our Great Langdale axes have been found. In fact, they've been found in a large number of different places than just this. You can see there's a big concentration on both the east and west coasts, sort of in the middle of this part of the country, but they do spread all the way south. They do spread all the way into Aberdeenshire as well. So we've got a good spread of where this Great Langdale stuff is actually going to. So I also wanted us to sort of just try and get into the meat of maybe what the Neolithic period is about from another angle. So what we discussed last week was that we loosely said that the big difference between the Mesolithic period and the Neolithic period is that in the Neolithic period they started doing things in a big way. Right, we started saying things about Silbury Hill. We mentioned the likes of Stonehenge. We mentioned the likes of Avebury. We looked at the evidence that we're getting from Orkney, the Isle of Lewis with all the great standing stones. That's what makes the Neolithic much more different from the Mesolithic period. Because in the Mesolithic period, we don't find big monuments like we see in the Neolithic period. So that's one big difference. The other huge difference really is the scale of how they do things in the Neolithic period. I can't say anymore that they didn't have axe factories in the Mesolithic period, because that would be completely wrong. Because not so many weeks ago, we looked at a factory producing lithics off the West Wales coast at Nabhead, and that was clearly in the Mesolithic period. So they did have factories in the Mesolithic period, but however, the great level and the great expanse of manufacturing output in the Neolithic period is far greater than anything we've seen in the Mesolithic period. So that's another big difference, right? And just basically this other little bit of a map here, right? So if we bring this up here, so we've got our Langdale there, and what we can see is various different axe factories, some in the likes of our Cornwall down here. We've got a few in Kent, And we've got some going into the likes of East Anglia, including Grimes Graves. And we've got a few in Wales actually. So we've got a few in West Wales which are very near me. We've got a couple in North Wales. This one's quite famous. This is Penman Mire as well. I've mentioned that a few times. So we've got Grimes Graves, Penman Mire. You've got Langdale. And the one thing about this is that you've got lots of these axe factories, and they're trading there. All these things seem to be traded all the way around Britain. And
The ones
again,
over in Pembrokeshire, they maintain that the actual flints came from Ireland.
Ah, porcelainite.
Yeah.
shut up, Pete.
Yeah.
But this is we were, I think we were looking at that with Nabhead actually. Some of the material actually coming off the beaches. So yeah, Pete's right. So you can actually talk about here, for example, on this one here, the Penman Mire axe factory. They're all spread all over the southern part of Britain. So we're not doing this one today, right? And you're looking over here as well. This one down here, which Pete would be very familiar with at Penrith. And you can see that distribution all the way over sort of this sort of southern part of England. So, you know, there's a lot going on with these objects, and again, they become very important. And so we're gonna get some images up on the screen now, rather than just relying upon just showing you the book. So if we go to we know where Langdale is now because we've been looking at it on there, and we can just get an idea. Come on. Oh, there it is. Oh, just let it go. Don't do anything. Hang on. It's not enlarged in a minute. Right, hang on. There. Go for it. Enigmatic or what, eh?
Can't see anything.
Not
Oh,
on
that's
the
because I'm not sharing. You see, no, nobody told me I was supposed to be sharing.
I thought
You know
you
what
knew
they
what
say?
you were doing.
No, I don't know what I'm doing. So somebody asked me the other day about the house I'm building. Well, you have built a house before, haven't you? Well, I said no. So how the hell do you know what you're doing? Well, I'm just doing it. There you go. Right, okay. I'm doing a pretty good job, so there you go. So there you go. Very enigmatic, and the one that's actually in the ancient Britain is really something as well. And I've been very close to the site on a couple of occasions when I used to live in Cumbria, and one of the things that we've really got to juggle about with is how did we suddenly get this widespread spread of axe factories? They didn't all just suddenly appear. We didn't get sort of axe factories in Cornwall and sort of axe factories in North Wales and axe factories in Cumbria, a few axe factories elsewhere. We didn't just get them overnight. It was just a development of people wanting axes. Interestingly, those axes would be perfect for cutting down trees. So the one thing that I've got a problem in my head is we're told, and this is one of the things that we were looking at in the Mesolithic period, but we did have a couple of problems with the following statement: the whole of Britain was covered in trees, right? But then we discussed how trees are going to naturally be destroyed via flooding. We mentioned about various other factors that might wipe out whole areas where there's trees, such as climate change conditions. We've mentioned that there might be lightning fires, there might be man-made fires, The trees might be dying off because of some disease. The ground itself might not be able to support big trees, so they just blow over. So the thing is that if we're looking, lots of the places that we get axes are in barren, desolate areas, including Penmaenmawr in North Wales, like this is in Cumbria. And you're thinking, well, for people to have discovered that you've got outcrops of the rock, they wouldn't have been able to find them if the landscape was covered in trees, right? Does that make sense? It does.
Mhm.
So therefore, do we go with the issue that people were cutting down trees, and what were they cutting them down with? Did the trees naturally all die off, or were there trees there in the first place? Now, I've got to go with that there were always trees there, because I'm a great advocate of trees. But I'm also a great person to tell you that when trees are gone, they, in most cases, don't come back, right? That's what I go with. That's where my mind goes, right? So again, when we make the statement, we have seen the initial clearance of trees had already taken place before we go into the Neolithic period. Well, that's obvious. We've done that, but this is the other thing. When we look at the Neolithic period, it's that other difference between the Neolithic and the Mesolithic period. Again, they did things on a big scale in the Neolithic period, and the clearance of trees, right? Or trees were disappearing for various different reasons. That's what I'm going to go with, for various different reasons. I used to, and Andy will tell you, that I would say, human beings were out there cutting down trees every single day of the week, right? But I don't go with that anymore. And as we've been looking at the Mesolithic period, that's something that I don't ascribe to anymore. However, when they're finding these outcrops of rock, it does assist the denuding of the trees by using the woodcutter's axe. Let's have a little look at some of these axes. And there's one. Well, there it is. Hafted. It's mounted. Bingo. Now, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn to this.
Carl,
Yeah, go on.
when I was over in Jersey, they were trying to simulate cutting the tree using a flint axe. And they never realized just how difficult it was. It would take something like 12 hours to cut one tree.
That's exactly what we're going to come on to. And Peter also, well, you know that this isn't flint, but for me, the true what's the word I'm trying to get at? The true matrix, the true sense of the igneous rock gives it its weight and power when you've got an edge to be able to cut something down. However, Peter's right. Flint is a lot sharper than these things. So, we've got a problem. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read out exactly what's in front of me, right? And it basically looks at something that Pete's just mentioned. Now, this next thing, the reason why there's this belief that we've got trees covering the whole of Britain, with a few doubters that I've put into the conversation. Pollen records show that practically the whole of Britain was covered with deciduous woodlands and conifers. Now, our main conifers are upland areas like the Scots pine, like the yew tree. So And they say even in the granite uplands of Dartmoor were covered in trees. We need to address that. Dartmoor, Snowdon, Your Fells, we've got Le Brecon Beacons, we've got some areas in Scotland, including some of the islands. When the trees are gone, they never return, right? Because the root systems of these trees in these upland areas are so finite, not infinite, finite, that when those root systems, after a long period of establishment, disappear, the rich soil disappears with them. Anyway, let's crack on with this statement, because we've got to get on. Tall trees with high, thick canopies produce dark, cathedral-like voids beneath. The varying subsoils supported different densities of undergrowth between the trees. Maybe they didn't. On the escarpment edges of the well-drained chalk and close to the water in the river valleys in the south, it was easier to move among the trunks. And it was there in particular that the first farmers began to make clearings. However, we do know that there's natural clearance, putting that in there, and there's people in other parts of Britain, Ireland, there you go, Hermitage, that are already there, long established, and on the islands, being able to interact with the landscape. Now, I'm going to chuck something else in here, which will come up a lot. When we go to say, for example, Orkney. Orkney is basically stereotypical of what we've just defined. When their trees are gone, they've got to make do. And in different parts of the country, people build in different ways, dependent upon whether there's trees there because they're gone, or whether there's large amounts of stone there to build with. Can I just mention one thing, right, which is a grey area? On Orkney, there's lots of stone. You can do lots with stone. Yeah. In the south, when the trees are gone and you've just got chalk and you've just got soil, it's very difficult to build anything. So the innovations in the south were to make cob walls. The innovation in the south was to try and bring stones in from other areas. Moving on. So here we go. When they're cutting down trees, using these that you can see, sharp, polished stone axes. Trees were felled to provide cultivation patches and grazing areas, if they didn't already exist. I keep going back to that. A polished axe. And there we go. A polished axe. Now this, you know, look at that there. Polished stone axe head. It's got it in the description, right? And it's defining that as actually from a Penrith, but that's very similar to the Langdale ones anyway. Now look at that edge. Focus on that edge. Look at that edge. Professionally used, can cut down an average tree the thickness of a telegraph pole in about 30 minutes.
No. No.
Yeah, I'm glad you, Andy. I'm glad you, Peter. I'm glad you said no. Right, I'm glad you said no. Right, because I have tried it with a blunt iron axe, and I struggled to do it. And the reason why I use the word blunt is because the edge on this would become blunt very quickly. So here we go. Going back again to ancient Britain, the book. In 1954, experiments suggested that one man could clear a hectare of forest in 5 weeks. Well, I'd like to see him try. It said that when you use flint axes mounted in modern halves, like this one, halved in them, in the manner of surviving prehistoric examples and chop the trees at knee height. Trees more than 35 centimeters in diameter were ring-barked and left to die. Selected trunks and bigger branches would be trimmed and stored for building purposes. Small branches and leaves could be heaped around the bases of tree trunks and burnt. It was found that larger unwanted trunks had to be stacked before they could be burnt. However, do you know what, guys? I've just read that last bit out to you, but we've got no evidence of any of that taking place in the archaeological record. It comes back to that. It comes back to Margaret's suggestion about the trees again. In absence of evidence, we came to the conclusion that it was possible that people lived in trees because of other evidence like daub and things being left around. However, large-scale clearance of trees did that actually happen in that very way that we've so described. Now, what I want us to do is to bring Andy into his, not Andy, Peter, into his, into the experimental work he saw on Jersey. Speak to us, Pete.
Well, as I say, they were building a roundhouse similar to you, but to build the roundhouse, of course, they needed the tree trunks and the trees to form the beams, etc., to make the roof and the rest of the house. And so they said, well, to cut these down with a flint axe, we need to know how they did it. And so they were sharpening flints and getting the flints extremely sharp and trying to cut down trees with them. They were finding that it was taking almost as long as 12 hours to cut a single tree of say 10 inches in diameter.
And I'm not going to disagree with you there. It is really,
well. That's what they found. That's all I can say is that's how they found how long it took. That other one you showed was more of a scooping axe, I think, than a chopping axe. Yeah, that one there. Looks more for scooping out the center of a tree trunk to make a hollow, perhaps to make a canoe.
Can I just make an observation on what I've just read out, right? Now this is in ancient Britain. What I've just read out, right? By the end of this paragraph, and we it's just quite a long paragraph actually, right? That's just one paragraph. It basically says that there were trees around that were 35 centimeters in diameter. But at the beginning, they're talking about tall trees with high, thick canopies. Well, these tall trees would have had massive girths on them, right? So my point is where we're only talking about trees that they could cut down, not trees that they couldn't cut down. So how were they able to clear large areas in the first place, right?
The deciduous would be hardwood, wouldn't they? And the pine trees would be softwood. So it would be much easier chopping down pine trees than deciduous trees.
But there wouldn't have been many pine trees in Cornwall.
Well, there were pine trees before there were oak. Oak came a little bit later.
You are totally correct. But it was the oak trees and all the other trees that were displacing the other lines of the Scots pine, for example. So you're very right to come in on that, Margaret.
And oak needs
oak is extremely hard.
Oak needs a lot of open ground to regenerate.
So
Sorry,
carry on.
I was curious with the trees because these the hardwoods, obviously the hardwood take a lot longer to grow than the softer ones. So if we had a natural covering of, let's say, pine trees, inverted commas as opposed to, how did these oak trees and all these hardwoods take over? Because they would be slower growing. they would have to have open ground to start with to grow, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they
I'm
would.
glad. I'm glad you're entering this
Well,
debate
because they cut
yeah.
down the pine trees around them, hadn't they?
They cut them all down and then the others sneaked in. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
well,
I'm just astounded by all the different varieties of trees that arrived at different periods in time.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I mean, was there one tree that they all sprang from? Do they have a common ancestor? All these different varieties of trees. I just find it amazing that there's so many different kinds of trees.
So I tell you what, we need to do trees again. Well, and maybe right, okay. We just need to do a few trees, right?
Well,
What we're going to do
is complex, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Right, there we go. Right, okay. Now, if we're looking at that, right, very familiar. Some of the names on there, and familiar is anyway. And so basically, if we take that image, right, let me go with my flow, okay? So if you think about, it's estimated that by about 10,000 years ago, the Scots pine. The Scots pine had basically colonized more or less most of Britain, right? And following on closely behind the Scots pine, we're looking at the smaller trees, like the hazel. You're talking about hawthorn. You're talking about holly. They're living in amongst all these other trees like the Scots pine. We're talking about just after that. So we're talking about 10,000 years ago. We're talking about well colonized. And just 10,000 years ago again, we're seeing lots of evidence of oak trees colonizing large tracts of Britain with elm. And then you're coming in with ash, and you're talking about beech, and you're talking about all these other trees, right? And as we're dredging up, for example, off the coast of East Anglia, we're coming across massive, chunky tree trunks of oak. So I think the point is that whatever's happening, some trees are better propagators than others, right? And the way trees sort of are distributed around Britain are distributed in various different ways. And 2 points with this is one, that we have to look at Britain as being still connected to Europe for most of the tree line to move around. Now, I'm going to say it. Yesterday, I went to a place nearby, right? And I scooped up roughly about 500 acorns. And they were all they were all sort of they were all starting to root. So I scooped them all up, right? Today I got about another 500, so I got 1,000 sprouting acorns, right? And I tell you what, that's I know that's about £2,000 worth of trees that we will be able to sell. Now, I've given that example because some trees are better propagators than others, right? And if you got something like the Scots pine, where you've got the pine marten going up into the trees, getting the nuts and all the rest of it, and there's not as much. There's not as many nuts on the Scots pine, so you can start to see that the oak starts to overcompete the Scots pine, right? And you get various different diseases with Scots pine. And actually, there is actually a better answer. Scots pines only live a few hundred years. Oaks live thousands of years. Yew trees live thousands of years.
Because you can't cut the damn things.
Oh, shut up, Pete. Ash trees, for example, grow on average about 350 years, right? But an oak tree lives 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. So what it is to regenerate. So a Scots pine dies, right? It rots away, and you might say that Scots pine sort of grows quickly, right? But it dies after 200 years. So where an oak tree is going to be living 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, 500 years, it's going to be outliving all those generations for Scots pine. So it's going to be becoming mature, and then the oak trees become dominant. That's what's happening. And there's another point about this as well. The movement of trees. So say, for example, you've got nut and berry trees and rhizomic trees, root system trees, and basically you've got the rhizomes, and you've got the for example, the rowan. This year we've sold several £100s worth of rowan berries, right? Because the rowan trees have been full. But other years you don't have full rowan berry trees. But the rowan berries are going to be eaten by birds, and they're going to deposit beyond the Scots pine tree line. So those seeds are going to sort of fall on the ground, and they're going to grow. And whereas the nuts, the oak nuts, for example, they might be buried by squirrels. So there's lots of different ways that trees are sort of colonizing the landscape, right? And you'll find something like holly has got this sort of rhizomic root system that sort of spreads as well, but very slowly. So this is basically what's happening with the trees. Now I've got to ask us the question back to what we said at the beginning. We're not going to get the bloody Langdale factory done at this rate. I don't need to do it at this rate because we'll be coming back to Langdale anyway. But I just want us to discuss it a little bit today. How does the tree line manage to sort of spread into these upper areas? Naturally, that's going to be full of soil and sort of rich glacial deposits. But the movement of the tree line in those areas is going to be very slight. And you've got to ask yourself the question, did the tree line ever reach places like that? Anyway, I just chucked it out there because my notes tell me, for example, that we've got trees everywhere. It says we've got mountain tops full of trees. If we're looking at with the pollen. So back to a point I made earlier on, the indigenous Mesolithic people had flint axes. But now they're refined. Now they're more polished. Now they're trapezoidal shaped axes, as we've already seen. Now, what I'd like to do is go back to one of those axes, right? Let's go back to one of those polished axes. If I can work out what the hell I'm doing. Right, so okay, let's go to okay. Okay.
So what material would be used to polish that?
That's exactly what we're going to do.
It would have to be harder than that.
Yes. Now that's not exactly a Langdale, that's a Penrith one, but Penrith, not in Cornwall, is Penrith in Cumbria. So Pete, do you want me? I can answer this question. A trapezoidal shaped tool, trapezoidal. And we're going to go directly back to what my book tells me. Modern experts and experimental experts like Phil Harding, nobody's ever come across him, have they? Time team, Phil Harding. Arr!
Hairy man.
Arr! What?
Got quite long hair, hadn't he? And glasses. I can picture him.
Arr! 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 All the way from Wiltshire he is. Right. Philip Harding's suggested that to make a single axe like this, like the one you're seeing, right, required about 8 hours of continuous grinding on abrasive secondary stones to actually produce one axe, right? So one single axe would take 8 hours. So one axe could be produced a day. He says, and he believes. Now, Peter, what we need to do, we need to take your point from earlier on. You watch these archaeologists, right, experimenting. And I got to be honest with you, archaeologists are not very good at replicating the past. You know, I will go with I will go with an example that I keep using. Can you remember my university lecturer that I keep mentioning, Professor Colin Richards from University of Islands and Islands? I'm not going to give you the full story again because I've told it to you 50 times. He goes to a Pacific island, and these two boys, they move a 4-ton stone 1 mile. One of them gets injured, and they manage to move this stone over 1 mile within no time at all, right? Now, if you get a group of archaeologists moving that 4-ton stone, they would probably have to drill a hole through it, use 15 to 20 people, and they probably wouldn't be able to drag it 10 meters. So if you get people who, the point I'm trying to make, Peter, is if you get people who are making these things day in, day out, they will be able to produce one in 8 hours. This is what Phil Harding's saying. Okay? That's what he's saying. You can't, for example, Margaret, me and Margaret are going to try and produce one of these, right? It would probably take us, probably take us a week. Right?
What, to make it smooth, you mean, or to actually cut it down to that size?
Well, we've got to, if we go back, right? We got something like that.
Yeah.
That's an okay tool, right? But we've got to try and hone it. So okay, right, right. It's been drawn out the rock. It's been mined. Okay. It's been hewn, so it's been roughed, right? So and then eventually you've got that. So all that process to hewn it, and I do believe that I do believe that Philip Harding is actually talking about from where you get the raw material all the way through to actually that. So this is what I'm thinking. I don't think he's just thinking, oh, you're spending 8 hours polishing it. My translation of that is that 8 hours is the complete process. If 8 hours is not the complete process, and actually just polishing it is 8 hours, right? To produce a single axe could take 2 days. It depends how you work out what Philip Harding's saying, right? So if we want to actually go back to this, we've actually got, as we showed you a map earlier on, and maybe we should come back to this now. So if we get off this now, and I know I want to do a complete and utter chunky hour, right? So I want us to look at that again, right? Okay, let's just do it side on. Let's just do Britain side on. Okay. So you've got this one in Ireland here, right? And this one itself, and you've got our Langdale one, and you've got one over in Northumberland, and you go all the way then down the page again, and you've got this one which is in a place called Charnwood Forest. You've got this one here, and number 1 here is Grimes Graves, right? That's a flint axe factory, where these are stone axe factories. You see the difference? So these are being mined in a different way than, for example, these ones, completely different way. So these are being mined from deep underground, or when I say deep underground, 5-6 meters underground, and these are being mined from outcrops. two different types of rock, actually. That's in chalk. That's in the upland areas. Same with Penman Mire. And then what you've got here is you've got the mining in West Wales that we mentioned. The ones in Cornwall, there's loads of them in Cornwall. And then you go down to these ones. These are all flint as well. So these are all flint. And what we're finding is that there's a flint. This is where all the flint axe factories are. Yeah, and then there's bits. There is bits of flint elsewhere in Britain, in Lincolnshire actually, but this is actually showing an axe factory, right? And there's lots of flint around the coast as well, right? And we came up with this one in West Wales, didn't we? Nab's Head, but that was sort of beach collected flint, and I think this is what Pete was trying to get at, that the flint had been sort of eroded over or whatever, and had been moved by glaciation and stuff, and they picked her up and so on. So that's what's going on here. So it's quite a big map, and you've got ones in Scotland as well, right? So it's also quite possible that if we go further up the map as well, you've got you've got other mining and other outcrops in Scotland, for example, on Orkney, right? And you've got the soapstones and stuff from Shetland. So you've got lots of material, and there's factories that we don't know about because they're gone. But the one difference that we do find, the one huge difference that we do find, is that lots of the flint and the stone that we're using for axes is much better quality than stuff before. Right? What do I mean by that? Well, okay, I tell you what, I'm going to send you to the beach, Margaret. I'm going to send you to find some flint nodules, right? Andy's going to go down to Grimes Graves, mine some flint, and Andy's flint will be far superior to anything that you can find. Because the pebbles that you're finding that had formerly been used as axes or microliths, right? It's the flint that had been tumbled around by the sea, and there were fractures and there were faults with it, right? But the stuff that Andy's going to get underground, it's never been exposed to any of that. So Andy's stuff is going to be far better than yours, Margaret.
Is that much older?
No.
The stuff that you have to mine, won't it be?
Oh, right, yeah. No, sorry, yeah. Basically, you're right. So chalk itself is usually Cretaceous. So that's sort of the Cretaceous period ends, if I'm going to get this right. The Cretaceous period ends about 66 million years ago. So you've got the Jurassic, Cretaceous period. Cretaceous has got a lot of chalk, right? And also you've got a lot of chalk then sort of on the south coast and all the rest of it. So chalk itself is relatively new rock. Geological speaking, lots of the stuff at Penman Mire and you've got Langdale it is very, very old. So we're talking about 300, 400, 500 million years old rock. So it's very, very hardy rock. All right.
Well, it's igneous, isn't it? Whereas chalk isn't.
Yeah, chalk is sedimentary. The one point that Peter just made there is a very, very good point, right? Lots of the rock in these areas, right, is either igneous or very ancient sedimentary rock. So lots of this stuff, right, is igneous or metamorphic, but it's very, very old rock. Whatever you're looking at, even old sedimentary rock is really, really hard. Now, there is a point that Peter's just made that igneous rock can be formed at any time, right? Because it's volcanic. However, the last time that we had volcanic eruptions in Britain was a very, very, very long time ago, right? And even though lots of our volcanic eruptions were in tens of millions of years ago, our igneous rock that we see as outcrops in Cornwall are rock that's hundreds of millions of years old, igneous rock. So this is the point we're making, right? God, this is bloody wearing me out.
Have they ever found the, because they got the
No, Margaret, let's move on. Oh, God.
the stone, the stone from Pike of Blisco, isn't it, in the Langdales? There's apparently hundreds of microliths up there still. You can go up and pick up loads, but they took them down to be polished somewhere else. Have they ever discovered where they have these workshops, if you like, where they polish the stones?
Well, we are gonna try and look at some of this now. Okay, we are going to try and look at some of this stuff now. The one, well, I can remember me and Andy having agonizing times looking at this one, right? So if we go with one of those scenic images, I think that would be best. And because I'm on a bit of a flow, that's why I'm not having a break. So I'm just gonna I'm getting high as a kite on Coca-Cola, which isn't a good sign.
Ooh.
Oh, do you know what? I went I went in a shop the other day, right? And I right, my daughter's into well, one of my children is into spraying. She's a spray can artist, so she yeah.
Like a bank.
So Daddy's encouraging her to break the law, right? So I goes and buys these spray cans for her, right?
Mm.
And because I actually do it as well. Oh, you don't know that, right? Anyway, I sort of do slogans everywhere, sort of Cofir Druin, basically remember the valleys that were flooded. Well, anyway, don't need to go there. Why am I even talking about that? Anyway, I went into a shop. What? I've gone off on a tangent. It's about Coca-Cola, isn't it? I pointed to the woman. Oh, she said, I'm not selling you chocolate. Anyway, I've gone off on one, right? So you shouldn't have said anything, Margaret. Right. Okay, the point is, I went off on a complete tangent then, and it's to do with the Coca-Cola. Right. Me and Andy, going back years ago, we basically said, right, okay, your point, Margaret, your point is when they found the material that they needed to make axes, right? Did they shape them in situ, or did they move the material somewhere else to shape them, right? Now, the biggest problem when you've got material that you need to, that you're working in, and it's quite heavy, right? So right, the point is, if you get a load, if you get lots of the igneous rock from Langdale, and you add bucket loads of this and you put it somewhere else, right? You're having to move that weight, okay? And then you get all of the waste stuff, right? And then you get rid of it there. But it's much easier to sort of more or less shape these things in situ.
Mm.
So when they go somewhere else, you don't have to carry the excess weight that you didn't need in the first place.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, Margaret, right, okay. Can I give you an example of what I've been doing today? Well, I was coppicing some wood, right? And it was some really nice hazel. And I've got a small car at this minute. I've got a Ford KA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't get really long lengths of wood in there, right? So yesterday I went there, and all the stuff I took down to the car, right? I had all the bits of branches on it, and I stuffed her into the car. And by the time I got it back, right, I didn't have many lengths of wood anyway, because whatever. So what I did today, I took my saw, I took my snips, I cut the exact lengths I needed in situ. I cut all the bits of branches off, right? Chucked them in a big pile, and I put them in the car, and I managed to get a load back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is exactly the same point here. If you, for the sake of working on 10 axes in one spot, roughing them up, a little bit of polish, putting them in a basket. Those 10 axes go down the mountain and somebody else works on them. But if they're big bits of rock, you might only be able to get 2 axes out of them. So you've wasted all that time transporting crap to somewhere else. And this is one of the things that we've discussed before. Is I believe it's far better to nap them and to more or less rough them up and nap them and to have close on the final shape. Somebody else can polish them somewhere else, right? But that's not much weight. So if you can rough them up, it's far better doing it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they did.
So, but some people believe the other, and I just can't go with it. Because I know me and Andy had this discussion before. We sort of said, you know, you had they just big stones and whatever. It just doesn't work that way. Do you remember that discussion we had, Andy? Oh, Andy's not talking to me. Sod it.
Well, the fact that there's so much debris up there from it shows that they didn't actually make the axes there.
Say that again?
The fact that there's still so much debris, microliths up there. I don't know that they've ever found any axes up there. They've found them elsewhere.
No, they have found them up there.
Have they found them?
They have found them up there, yeah.
What, the polished ones, the ready?
No.
Just the rough ones.
Rough ones, yeah.
Rough.
Yeah.
Tommy reckoned he found one.
Well, Claire brought one to a meeting once, didn't she? A finished one, a polished one.
Yeah.
But as Pete said, how did they polish them? They would have needed some sort of strong abrasive thing, some kind of file.
Like that.
The thing is, right, the thing is
Material
there are harder things out there.
Like my heels, actually. I think I could hone an axe on my heels because the skin is so dry.
Well, you can give it a go.
I think if I rubbed my heels together, I could start a fire, actually.
I think the point being made is that if you rub up against anything long enough, it will eventually, you know, you'll eventually make an impact in it, right? It's just, you know, we've all got cars and we've got parts on a car. They're iron, right? And eventually, you know, look at our brake discs on our car. You know, they're iron. They're rubbing against iron, right? And it's just basically right. Eventually, it wears down, and we've got to replace our brake discs.
They're designed so to do.
Exactly, but the point I'm trying to make is you don't have to necessarily have really hard abrasive stones to grind up against these igneous rocks. Eventually they will wear.
You see this piece of flint?
Yeah.
Right, okay, I can't see
it. It has to be napped. You can't polish it, it has to be napped into sharp edges.
Yeah.
See, there's where it's been napped.
Again. Yeah.
And here's a napped piece of flint. And see how sharp the edges are on that. The edges are really, really sharp.
Are those the ones you got from Haysborough with me?
What's that? Probably.
Yeah, I think you do.
And this one is probably from around Grimes Graves or somewhere.
Yeah,
but
that
it is a flint, and it is so hard that you can't polish it. You need to nap it into shape.
Yeah.
The shape that you require.
Yeah.
And then you've got this stuff, which from the Cairngorm Mountains, which is almost like carborundum.
Right.
Now, carborundum we know that we use for grinding at the moment.
Yeah.
Because it's a very hard, sandy material which can polish and grind other stones.
Mm.
Yeah,
and there's a bit of granite from Cornwall.
You've got quite a
That's from Cornwall, that is, especially from Cornwall, that bit. From Helston, actually, well, from Hurnes in Cornwall. And I know the chap who cut it. Here's some more from the Cairngorms. It's very sparkly but very sparkly material. And so it's extremely hard in places and can be used for polishing.
Mm.
And actually, Peter's just made a point. Peter's actually just made a very valuable point. Did you see it? What we've been discussing is Langdale and just axe factories in general. And you know, you might need to bring in materials from elsewhere to polish the stones. Now, I don't think, Andy, we've ever discussed that or even brought her into our minds or thoughts, right? So let's just take that one and let's just take that one forward. This is quite a valuable point. You know, you've got these areas where you're manufacturing, mining, producing, but you need to bring raw materials in as part of the manufacturing process. We don't discuss that. The point is, if we're trading these axes all the way around Britain, we might need to trade with other people the raw materials to produce these axes in the first place. And I can't remember seeing a single piece of writing of anyone doing any research into that. That's a very, very good point, Peter.
Okay.
We dotted two of them together. That's really, really good. So do we take a little break at this point, or should we just crack on? Do we want a little bit
I'm gonna get myself a cup of tea.
Oh, okay then, everybody, it's 9:01. I've been blathering on for a full hour and 11 minutes, right? Adrena hasn't said a sodding word.
That's because she's only half in the picture.
Right, okay then, folks, we're gonna just have a we're gonna have a 5 minute we're gonna have a 5 minute break, and I'm gonna do a bit of dunking.
This is what is known as a ventifract, a extremely hard piece of sandstone which has been shaped by the weather, by the wind and the weather. Well, that's why it's got that pointed shape on it. It's a ventifract.
Never heard of them. That's really nice.
That's the trouble with having geologists in the family, you see.
Hello.
A ventifract.
A ventifract, that is, yes. Formed by the wind.
That that polished axe that you say it says Penrith, that is a Langdale axe, definitely. It's just found at Penrith.
Okay.
That coloured green is what, especially the polished ones, are nearly all that colour green. It's a really weird rock that is only found in a few places.
I can stand to be corrected there, Andy. Good.
See how that sparkles?
Yeah, it does sparkle very clearly.
Yeah, that's what makes it so hard to use for grinding.
That's a Cairngorms.
This could be used to polish those stones you were talking about. That's from the Cairngorms.
So when you think about it, so this is that concept. I'm supposed to be putting the kettle on. No, this is the concept. It's like, right, we've got the axes, right? Yeah. We've got the place that the axes are being produced, wherever they're being produced, right? But these people are saying, actually, we need abrasive material to polish these, right? Can you trade us these things? And this is therefore adds with the idea of a two-way trade. So we've actually identified something that they can actually trade with. You give me one completed axe, right? And I want 2 or 3 of these stones to polish them. Great. That makes sense. Right, okay, I'm just gonna I am gonna put the kettle on now. It's Peter's fault, he's too enthusiastic.
Jolly
did you ever see that lecture that John actually put a pair of underpants on his head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. The question is, Pete, were they yours?
And see, that's how the flint.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
That's how the flint. That's how sharp that is.
Yeah, that's a microlith.
That's a microlith, which I have
Yeah.
just knocked off these flints,
Yeah.
and that's how it comes off.
Yeah, you can see all the
That is so sharp. I could
the
cut my
rings in it.
fingers on that quite easily.
Yeah, yeah, you can see all the rings in it where it's been put, the
Yeah.
percussion rings.
I don't know if I can get a bit of paper somewhere.
Oh yeah, test it.
Ooh.
Oh, rock. Or is that a-
Margaret,
Yeah.
I don't know whether we want any magazines, do we, for our library? I've been offered a load of current archaeology magazines.
Yes, go for it.
Okay.
See that?
Well,
just
when you
cut-
say how many? How many?
Well, I've got one carrier bag here, and Claire says there's several more.
Bags.
Yeah. So,
that just cut that piece of paper.
wow, that's a nice clean
That's how
cut
sharp
too.
it is.
Yeah. You'd have a tree down in no time.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll say yes
Where did
then and
that
get the
come
rest.
from?
Yeah, there isn't a lot of room on those shelves. They're pretty full.
Well, you need more. You need more shelves.
No. Well, okay. I've put all the. I think there's a lot of repeats of those paperback things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that there's quite a few editions that are the same. I'm going to have to go through them all. I've
Yeah.
put all of those in a box.
Is that the Archaeology Cymru Library?
Yes.
Yeah.
North. Brackets north.
North.
No.
I've put all the Lake District ones are in a box.
Oh, well done.
We had got them sorted out more or less, haven't we? But I keep getting things out. At the minute, I've got the Sweet Track to Glastonbury.
Oh, great. That's a good
Oh,
one.
nice.
Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah. With
Yes.
got pictures too. Brilliant.
I've got the Dartmoor Reeves,
Ooh.
and I've got Prehistoric Avebury.
All right. Excellent.
So this
Oh,
is
that was fab.
You'll be doing your own lectures soon.
this
When
is
we were
all-
when we were at Avebury, on some of those rocks, people were putting coins and things in the cracks.
do, yeah.
Yeah. And a certain member of Archaeology Cymru was taking them all and said, yeah.
I know in the forest here that the tree stumps and things are full of
Yeah.
pence pieces hammered in.
Mm.
And I've got flint implements of the Stone Age.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
So
You'll know all about it then.
yeah, when I'm not at film premieres and going to parties in Ibiza, I'm reading all of this lot.
Good. Good. Keep your brain going.
Those flakes of flint are so sharp, they're really dangerous,
Yeah.
And I've got Grimes
You'll
Grave.
be wearing gloves and glasses.
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
Oh, but do you know what I just had crawling out of my bloody beard, right? An earwig.
Oh my God.
What are you
I
keeping
just
it
had
in
a
there
bloody
for?
all
earwig
right.
crawl out of my bloody beard.
Too much information.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You could be right, Drina.
They're quite good for soaking up your gravy, aren't they, beards?
What? Earwigs?
Oh, you know, the problem is,
yeah.
Margaret, you know what? I usually lick my plate, right? I can't been able to lick my plate for months because
No.
it goes into my beard.
no.
That's right. Yeah.
I bet you could wring it out, that beard, couldn't you?
You know, I've even found pound coins in my beard.
Yeah, we should start a new trend. People should put money in beards. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, they'll be shaking me upside down, won't they?
Well, they do anyway, don't they?
Shut up, Andy.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we weren't supposed to talk about that, were we?
Yeah, just Andy, just keep your opinions to yourself. Thank you very much.
Fun.
I tell you what, I used to get on well with you once, Andy.
Yeah. It was a while ago, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I've never forgiven you for sending me to Claire's house. Going into a
You survived
a
it.
basement.
Yeah.
God. Right, my thingy's nearly done, so I'll be getting started again.
There's another shard
Well,
of flint.
Oh, yes, that looked like a little blade, you know, from
Yeah,
the
it is,
Mesolithic blade. Yeah,
Yeah,
very good.
but say that one that we got off, it was so
Yeah.
sharp it cut the paper.
Yeah. I'm amazed when you find them and they can be, you know,
Yeah,
5,000 years old and still razor sharp.
well, absolutely, yeah.
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 Well, it's so hard that you can understand it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
You certainly don't get any polished flint, do you?
Right, okay. Look, guys, right? Can I just make an observation, right?
Mm.
If Peter ends up going to hospital tonight because he's severely cut himself, right? he will be banned from attending my classes.
That's the
by his
danger.
own
I've got a nice
daughter.
one on my head now.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Yeah. That's the dangers of experimental archaeology, Carl. You don't know.
Yep. Well, somebody has to do it. That's the way
Yeah.
you learn and you find out, isn't it?
This is maybe where the Neanderthals failed.
Yep.
Oh. It's been big and strong, but useless at making tools.
What are you talking about?
Neanderthals. That's
Oh,
part
no,
of their downfall.
You and I are going to be falling out on the Neanderthals. And shut up.
Did they make many tools? Have
Yes, they
found-
did. Andy,
Yeah, they did.
keep your
Yeah.
thoughts to yourself.
A nice bit of granite.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you what, this is a strange situation. What, Matt, you know what's going to happen next? Drina's going to say, "Here's a pair of my underwear."
That's where that's a polished bit of granite.
Right.
It was shiny, it's polished. That was cut by Arthur Opie about 1947.
Who the bloody hell's Arthur Opie?
The man who cut that in 1947.
What's Andy got? Looks like half a boomerang.
It's lava.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's a little tongue of lava that I got off
Right.
Fortaventura,
Oh,
and there isn't a volcano there. It had
How
come
did you
from
get-
the island next door, and I thought, "Ooh, that must have been a big bang."
How did you manage to get that through customs?
I didn't say anything. I just put it in my bag.
Did they not spot it on the X-ray?
No, it was in the other bag, but they don't mind. You can take rocks home.
Can you?
Yeah, not
Think you
gold
could?
ones. Hmm.
I didn't think you could.
Oh well, I did.
Well, I'm not going to tell you about the stupid time I rigged up a bomb in my case.
Yeah.
No, when I was 10 years, when I was 9 years old, coming back from Cyprus, right, I decided to get some wires, right, and I put them in some cheese, right, and I wired it up to an alarm clock, right,
Mm.
so it looked exactly like a bomb, right, and it got through customs.
Yeah.
Oh,
They weren't that fussy in them days, were they?
No,
no.
they weren't.
I got asked to do just that through this Coast Guard to test airport security,
Mm.
but I was going to do it, and then I thought, do you know what? If they recognise me when I go on holiday, they're going to stop you and search everything out there, make life hell for you. So I decided not to do it.
Well,
no,
no,
guess
right.
in what was then the USSR.
Mm.
I was only 18, and two of us were sat at a table in a bar, and we wondered if the little flower posy in the center of the table had a microphone, because we'd heard all about the USSR.
Yeah.
And so we said, if we decide, we'll plot to blow up the the nuclear icebreaker they've just built.
Yeah.
And so we were daft enough. If there had been, we would never have got back home again.
You'd still be there now, wouldn't you? Yeah.
We would still be there now. How daft we were those days, yeah.
Right,
Walked
folks,
into
let's
one
crack
room
on.
in Archangel,
Mm.
and they invited us in and took us into this room where there was a lecture on communism going on.
Trying to convert you. Yeah.
But
Was it Margaret trying to show us a book then?
oh,
well, I've got this about Grimes Grave.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh,
A friend
Grimes
of mine
Grave.
has just been. This is very current.
well,
Is it?
we went there, Carl, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I was actually looking at the photograph